Canadian citizens have been sold out as brutally as any group of citizens in any country in world history over the past decade of Liberal leadership. And finally, the poll numbers are shifting. Canadians are waking up to see how this unlimited immigration has destroyed the cultural fabric, the economic fabric, the healthcare fabric across the board. The unprecedented, unvetted immigration, many Muslim extremists, jihadis, people from all over parts of the world that share nothing in common with Western values. Matter of fact, people with anti-Western values, people who chant all the children's blood on your hands, burn Canadian flags, intifada, violent revolution in our lifetime, Indian gangs on our street, African gangs on our street. I now have a new immigrant African living right near to me, swings a baseball bat against the wall. There's no doubt our country has been sold down the goddamn river. The Canadian people have been sold down the river, unlike any population in world history. What we have done on immigration is so sell out the middle and lower classes in Canada. There is no historical precedent. You could point at maybe Lebanon from 1940 to 1970, Argentina. A couple examples of as extreme, rapid per capita demographic shift as we've seen in Canada. Each time it winds up in a civil war, but historical precedence is nearly not there for what's happened in Canada. So now what's the government doing? They are shutting anybody up. I had 30,000 followers and quickly growing on TikTok. I was just shut down because I criticized the government of Canada's ridiculous immigration policies that are selling us out every single day. So you know what the Canadian government does? Rather than say, let's deal with the fact that we have sold our citizens out for a decade plus, this so-called post-national state, Justin Trudeau, now Mark Carney, have absolutely allowed it is an invasion, the invasion of Canada by people who hate us. They have said, we know we can't win this argument because any Canadian who actually lives here, who knows the country, knows how radical the change has been in the past 10 years. We can't lie to them about that. The polls are shifting massively. Canada has not been as anti-immigrant in its entire history as it is right now, because at some point reality hits. And no matter how accepting of immigration most Canadians are, they look around their streets, they look at 50% of women with veils on their heads, they look at the exploding violence, they look at the cultural deterioration, they look at our inner cities looking like freaking war zones 2 blocks away from the Parliament building, and they say, I can't stand for this anymore. I was told that immigration was the equitable, just thing to do, but all I'm seeing is the destruction of my country. The Canadian government under the crook Mark Carney, who works for the WF Davos, these guys who believe in Initiative 2100 that wants to have 100 million people in Canada by the year 2100, selling us out so hard it's hard to put it into words. The Canadian government sees how strong the public opinion is turning, and what do? Rather than saying, okay, we're going to fix the issue. Okay, Mark Carney had said we was going to allow another 1.5 million people into the country in 2025. We're not going to reverse course. We're not going to ensure that the 3 million people here on temporary visas are actually going to leave, because they're making it abundantly clear that they don't plan on leaving, do not want to leave, and have said they will resort to violence if necessary. Just another quagmire this ridiculous traitorous government has put us in. But the Canadian government looks at the polling, looks and sees what a disaster immigration is, bringing these radical jihadis into the country, at least 18,000 criminals knowingly allowed into the country. That's insanity. One of the senior most Indian officials coming out and saying, why is Canada allowing all these criminals into their country? It's total insanity, but it's what we do. So what do? What's the government of Canada's response? They're going to remove you from the internet. Like I said, I just had a 30,000 follower account back. They're passing C9 and C8. Bill C9 would allow the Canadian government to, without any notification, an MP can unilaterally remove your internet service from your home. If the Canadian government does not like what you're posting, they don't need to take you to trial. They don't need to come after you. All they have to do, they can unilaterally call Rogers, call Shaw, whoever your internet service provider is, and just cut your internet service right there so you don't have internet. This is 1984 on steroids, with even the less regulation on the government. They want to be able to just say, we don't like what you're saying. You have no ability to access the internet anymore. That's C9. That's insanity. Bill C8 expands the definitions of hate speech. We already have hate speech laws in Canada that are strict and that exist, but are, of course, only applied to opponents of the Liberal Party. They're not opposed to these pro-Hamas thugs walking to our streets every day, talking about intifada in our lifetime with a police escort, which means violent revolution, chanting about how it's Canadians' fault what's going on in the Middle East and that Canadians have blood on their hands. No, if you want to do that, you're totally fine. But if you want to talk about the ridiculous immigration, letting these thousands of people into our country every single year that absolutely hate us, that is defined as hate speech. It expands the definition of hate speech to so-called fomentation of detestation and vilification. Good luck figuring out what that means. They're expanding the definition, and you know exactly why. Canadians know exactly why. They want to be able to have the ability to go after their political opposition in Canada. If you want to speak out against immigration, if you want to speak out against these assaults on free speech, if you want to speak out against the insider dealing that's going on with Mark Carney, if you want to speak out about the insane 7.1% unemployment rate in Canada, second highest in the G7 due to immigration, and that's only among people who are actively looking for jobs. I've heard people say that in Canada, the actual unemployment rate is in all likelihood higher than like 11 or 12%. Because so many people have just dropped out and stopped looking. There's also the crazy DEI stuff where every job that you apply to asks, are you a woman? Are you gay? Are you indigenous? The exact opposite of meritocracy. An estimated 70,000 excess Canadians die every year because they cannot get the health care that they require because our system is so overrun. How can you justify bringing 1.5 million new people into the country when we literally do not have the healthcare services to deal with the people in this country right now? We are getting sold out down the river. So what the Canadian government is doing, they're expanding the definition of hate speech. They're giving themselves the ability to cut off your internet service. So more and more Canadians like me, Canadians who speak up about how we are being sold down the river every single day by this traitorous government, no longer will have the ability to speak. It's pathetic. It's sick. We need to keep speaking up. You know you're winning when they realize the only way that they can get at you is by literally cutting your ability to speak. You pathetic cowards. You can't win an argument. You can't just yell race as xenophobe anymore. So you have to literally, because you're losing the debates in the polls, you literally have to cut internet services. You guys are not going to win. You guys are pathetic. You won't silence me. You won't silence patriotic Canadians who are going to continue to talk about what's going on in this country. C8, C9, this is disgusting. This is Orwellian. We're seeing 1984 on steroids come to Canada, and we need to stop it. We need to stop it now and stop the invasion of this goddamn country. Please like, share, subscribe, join, become a member, grab some gear, donate. I really appreciate everybody who supports me. Thank you so much. It means a lot to me. Canadian Patriots are going to win, but it's going to be a fight.